Hello, fellow Clear Mind enjoyers. We're back in Master Duel, and today we're looking at the newest additions to the game, Kijugo and Rose Dragons. Since they were released in the same pack, Konami surely intended for both archetypes to be played together, right? Jokes aside, this is probably my favorite take on Rose Dragons. It brings something unique to the table when mixed with Kijugo. At first, I tried playing the deck Purin with Examiner, but it consistently felt like I was getting punched in the face. Then I remembered that roses can be mixed quite well with Kijugo, and another YouTuber, Black Rose Duelist, has already explored this combination. I definitely recommend checking out his content if you're into Rose Dragons. He covers essentially every variant. You'll find a link to his channel in the description. So, why do I think this is the best variant of Rose Dragons? To answer that, we need to understand the deck's issues. One major problem is that the deck only has 6 one-card starters, Rox Rose Dragon and White Rose Garden, which makes consistency a bit shaky. On top of that, extending from your main starter can be difficult because many of the extenders are awkward bricks, so finding the right balance is tricky. For the amount of setup and bricks required, the deck ceiling isn't particularly high. Roses also struggle against Droll and Lock Bird. It's not an instant loss, but you either have to anticipate it and weaken your combo significantly or rely on a rare 2-card combo that can play through it. You can definitely feel the age of the Rose Dragon main deck monsters, and it's widely agreed that they need to be paired with another engine to function properly. However, most available engines either have no real synergy or very poor bridges into the Rose cards, with one exception, Kijugo. Some players have tried Adventure Rose Dragons, but personally, after suffering through Adventure Synchrons for years, I have no desire to go back. Opening Draco back still haunts me, and the engine loses hard to common back row removal, which is very relevant right now with decks like Radiant Typhon and Kijugo in the meta. It also doesn't bridge into the Rose engine well on its own. Another popular option is Examiner. While I do think it has potential and can get you to Master 5, it comes with its own set of issues, mainly card advantage. Bridging from Examiner into Roses is also pretty awkward, usually only getting you to Rage Rose while requiring multiple discards, and it still struggles against common hand traps and back row removal. That brings me to the last engine I tried, Kijugo. At first, I thought it was just 2 separate decks with minor synergy, but it's actually much deeper than that. Both engines can bridge into each other off 1-card combos, and when you open both together, the deck becomes incredibly strong and resilient to disruption. My favorite 2-card opener is Rotary and Red Rose Dragon. Why? Because this combo can play through 2-hand traps while still generating a ton of advantage. When both engines come together, they create a unique and very fun play style. I had a great time playing this version of the deck. That said, I don't want to mislead you, Kijugo is probably stronger as a standalone deck. But if you're looking to try something different and fun, I highly recommend giving this variant a shot. Before we move on to the deck profile, I really appreciate your support under every video. With that said, let's get into the deck. Well, to the people who skip to this part, don't instantly click off the video. Let me cook first. I'll explain the theory here and show you the combos that bridge one engine into the other. Trust me, they're fire. For now, let's start with the Rose package. We're running 3 Red Rose Dragon, 3 Rox Rose Dragon, 3 Black Rose Garden, 1 White Rose Dragon, 1 Witch, and 1 Knight. Rox Rose and Garden are your main 1-card starters. Rox Rose searches any card that mentions Black Rose Dragon on summon, and if a Rose Dragon or Plant Synchro is destroyed by your opponent, it adds itself back to your hand. It's basically your standard Stratos-type starter, but with solid recursion for grind games. Black Rose Garden's main purpose is to search a Rose Dragon monster on activation. In terms of 1-card starters, Rox Rose and Garden are essentially searching each other. A nice bonus is that Garden turns all monsters on the field into plants, including your opponents, which can completely shut down certain strategies like Fiendsmith or RB. If it's destroyed, it burns your opponent based on the number of plant monsters in your graveyard, and if it's destroyed by a Black Rose Dragon, it deals an additional 2,400 damage. that might not seem too relevant at first, but combined with 2 copies of Bramble Rose Dragon on the field, it becomes a real threat. It can put your opponent in a position where they only have around 5 monster activations left before they lose the game. It's a surprisingly funny gameplay loop and, not gonna lie, a decent line into fewer and maxed C. Red Rose Dragon isn't a 1-card starter, but it absolutely earns its spot at 3 by enabling extremely strong 2-card combos with the Killer Tune engine, especially with Rotary, as mentioned before, letting you play through up to 2-hand traps. When used as synchro material, it summons a Rose Dragon from the deck, usually Rox Rose. If we only open Killer Tune cards, we typically access Red Rose through Q and try to set up a second copy in hand to use during the opponent's turn. In those situations, it often summons White Rose Dragon on the opponent's turn. White Rose Dragon is interesting. Its first effect is kind of outdated. When normal summoned, it can special summon a Rose Dragon from hand or grave, which like an okay turn 3 play, but it basically never comes up. The relevant part is usually tied to its second effect. If you control a Rose Dragon or a plant tuner, it can special summon itself. You can really feel the age of the card here. It had its uses when the game was slower, but nowadays it's pretty underwhelming. Its second effect is much more relevant. When used as synchro material, it can send a level 4 or higher plant from deck to grave, usually Vengeful Witch. You can think of her as a modernized version of White Rose. When sent to the grave while you control a synchro monster, she can special summon a plant monster with 1500 defense or less from the deck. Similar to White Rose, she's also an extender if you draw her, since she can special summon herself if you control a Black Rose Dragon, a card that mentions it, or a plant synchro. She's usually paired with Twilight Black Rose Knight. When he's summoned, he can special summon a plant from the graveyard, unfortunately with its effects negated, similar to Junk Synchron, but it's still good enough. He can also modify a plant monster's level by 1, which opens up some interesting plays. The honorary mention in the Rose package is Glow Up Bulb. When it's in the graveyard, it can mill the top card of your deck to special summon itself. It's also a target for Witch and can be sent by Rage Rose. Overall, it's just a nice extender. Now let's take a look at the second engine, Killer Tune. The ratios here are a bit different from pure Killer Tune. We're running 3 Rotary, 2 Mix, and 1 Clip, and honestly, even in pure builds, you should probably only run 1 Clip. The turn 0 play it provides just isn't worth it. We also run 2 Reco, 1 Q, 2 Killer Tune Synchros, and 1 Field Spell. As an early bonus, I had the pleasure of running 3 Overtake, but with the newly announced ban list, we now have to cut it down to 1. To make up for that, we can just keep the deck at 40 cards and add an extra Mix or Reco. It really comes down to personal preference. Reco has the better 1-card combo line, but Mix works much better with Red Rose and the rest of the Rose engine. Here's a sample list that I'll be playing once the ban list drops. Rotary gives us an additional normal summon for tuners if we reveal another tuner in hand. If she's used as material, she lets us look at the opponent's hand and add a spell from it to our hand. Her second effect also allows us to shuffle a card from the opponent's graveyard back into the deck. Mix searches a Killer Tune monster with a different level, and if she's used as material, she can destroy a monster on the field. Clip is our searchable hand trap during the opponent's turn that doesn't lock us into tuners. He can special summon himself during the opponent's turn, and if used as material, he randomly banishes a card from the opponent's extra deck. Reco is basically the counterpart to Mix. Like Mix, she searches a Killer Tune monster with a different level, and if used as synchro material, she can destroy a spell or trap on the field. The last main deck monster in the Killer Tune engine is Q. On normal summon, she special summons any tuner from the deck, but after that, we're locked into tuners for the rest of the turn. If she's used as material, she looks at the top 2 cards of the opponent's deck, we can banish one and either place the other on top or at the bottom. All Killer Tune main deck tuners share the same effect, they can use tuners from the hand to perform a synchro summon of a tuner synchro monster. The field spell, JJ Killer Tune, gives an additional normal summon for tuners and contribute a tuner on the field to special summon a Killer Tune monster from the deck. However, if we use that effect, we're locked into tuners for the rest of the turn. We're also running 2 killer tune synchros, but honestly, 1 is usually enough. I'll probably cut down to 1 in the future to make room for an additional non-engine card. I have it at 2 because it's a twice per turn and we can search 2 quite easy. The rest of the deck is filled with non-engine cards, but unlike pure killer tune, we don't have the luxury of running 20 hand traps. On top of the mandatory picks like Droll and Lockbird, Maxed C, Ash Blossom, Called by the Grave, and, depending on preference, fewer, though you could argue that Purulia might be better in this meta, we only have about 3 flexible slots left. My choice here is Effect Veiler, mainly because it can pair nicely with Reco when needed. If we had better level 2 tuner hand traps, I'd definitely consider those instead. Other solid options right now include Ghost Bell and Ghost Ogre, which is surprisingly strong in the current meta. Overall, I'm pretty satisfied with how the main deck looks. It feels very close to optimal for a Rose Dragon build. With that said, let's move on to the extra deck. First up is the level for tuner, Killer Tune Track Maker. It requires any Killer Tune tuner plus another tuner, and on summon, it searches a Killer Tune card. Like the main deck monsters, it can also use a tuner from the hand to perform a synchro summon. If it's used as material, it can bounce a card on the opponent's field. Next is Garden Rose Maiden. Most of the time, we send her to the graveyard with Vengeful Witch rather than summoning her. Her graveyard effect lets her banish herself to revive either a Rose Dragon or a Dragon Synchro monster, basically a synchro version of Monster Reborn. Killer Tune Remix requires mix as material and allows us to perform a quick synchro summon into a tuner synchro during the opponent's turn. She tributes herself, adds 1 tuner from the graveyard to the hand, and special summons another tuner from the grave. Noteworthy here is that we don't actually have to perform a synchro summon using the tuners that are added and special summoned. This means we can, for example, add Ash Blossom or Effect Veiler to the hand and then synchro using other cards like Red Rose, giving us even more advantage and disruption. Killer Tune RS requires Reco as material and acts as a sort of funny floodgate against XYZ decks, while also being solid against other synchro strategies. She can banish a tuner to negate a card on the field. Killer Tune Crackle is, in my opinion, a potential cut, but every time I consider dropping him, he ends up being useful, so he stays for now. He requires Clip as material, and on summon, we can look at the opponent's extra deck and banish 1 card until the end of the turn. This effect is either incredibly strong or completely useless, there's really no in between. If Crackle goes to the grave, it can special summon itself and banish 2 additional extra deck cards from the opponent's extra deck. Rage Rose, which is our first generic level 6 synchro. On summon, she sends a plant monster from the extra deck and 1 from the main deck to the graveyard. Typical targets are Garden Rose Maiden from the extra deck and either Vengeful Witch or Glow Up Bulb from the deck. Notably, she can also send Bramble Rose Dragon, which comes up in certain situations. On top of it, plant monsters we control can be destroyed by card effects, and Black Rose Garden turns every monster we control into plants. This essentially protects our field against our own Black Rose Dragon. Loudness War is necessary so that Reco can properly pair with Red Rose, but it also has a solid effect on its own. If the opponent activates a card, it can banish a Killer Tune monster and apply that monster's used as synchro materials effect. Next up is Black Rose Dragon, your classic board wipe that always threatens a full nuke during the opponent's turn thanks to the next card, Bramble Rose Dragon. We also run 2 Bramble Rose Dragons. In my opinion, 2 are required. Your standard 1-card combo cycles through 1 copy for Nibiru protection, while the second sets up a potential Black Rose nuke. Bramble has 3 strong effects. The first, arguably the weakest, is that the opponent pays 600 LP for each monster effect they activate. That might not sound like much, but with 2 on the field, that becomes 1200 per activation. Combined with Black Rose Garden, the opponent is effectively limited to around 5 monster effects before losing. Bramble can also trigger Garden at any time thanks to its quick effect, allowing it to tag out into Black Rose Dragon, which is treated as a proper synchro summon. Its third effect lets it banish itself to special summon a plant tuner from the graveyard. Zaylin is our final level 7 synchro. It requires a synchro monster to be summoned and acts as an easy-to-trigger Omninegate. One important thing, pay close attention to how Zaylin's effect works in-game. The effect right before Zaylin in the chain is the one it attempts to negate first, and the effect that was chained to is considered the second. It's honestly very poorly worded, and the UI doesn't make it any clearer. Just think of it from Zaylin's perspective in the chain. Crystal Wing is included because we can summon it easily, and it provides a strong monster negate and can easily punch over towers. Chow Feng is an important bridge that helps us transition from the Rose engine into killer tune plays. He searches for any tuner monster on destruction, which we can easily trigger with Baronne de Fleur. Everything else about him is irrelevant. Baronne de Fleur needs no introduction, a generic level 10 Omninegate that's easy to access. In this deck, her tag out effect is even more valuable than usual because we load the graveyard with so many useful targets that benefit from being revived. The last card and probably my favorite from the set is Killer Tune Back-to-Back. It has a twice per turn effect. When the opponent activates a card, we can special summon or add to the hand a tuner that is banished or in the graveyard, and immediately after that perform a synchro summon. Importantly, this does not have to be into a tuner synchro, meaning we can easily access Bramble, Crystal Wing, or even Baronne. If we don't need that, we can simply add the cards to our hand instead. Overall, it's an incredibly fun card. Every time I combo, I'm tempted to go for back-to-back over Baronne, even though Baronne is usually the optimal play just because of how fun it is. And the best part is, we don't struggle to access back-to-back during the opponent's turn anyway. So, what's my overall opinion on the deck? I think it's an incredibly unique Rose build, and it has the best synergy between engines out of all the variants. The only downside is that it can sometimes feel like you're just playing a slightly worse version of pure Killer Tune. But honestly, does that really matter? It's not significantly worse than pure Killer Tune, but it's significantly better than anything you can currently do with Rose Dragons on their own, while also having the strongest internal synergy we've seen so far. I had a great time playing this deck through Diamond, and I'm 100% confident that won't change in Master. Most of my losses actually came from timeouts, because the deck has so many options and such a high skill ceiling. You rarely follow a fixed combo line, you constantly have to adapt to your hand. Sure, there are some standard spreadsheet combos, which I'll show you, but this is really a deck you need to experience for yourself. With that said, let's move on to the combo section of the video. Our first combo of the day is Rox Rose Dragon. The line is essentially the same if you open Black Rose Garden, with the only difference being that Garden searches Rox Rose, and Rox Rose then searches Vengeful Witch. After that, the combo plays out identically. We're aiming to go into Bramble Rose Dragon, which we can do because Garden turns Rox Rose into a plant. From there, White Rose Dragon sends Vengeful Witch to the graveyard, and Witch summons Twilight Black Rose Knight from the deck. Be careful not to activate Knight's effect immediately, as that would unnecessarily expose you to something like Nibiru. Instead, we use Bramble and Knight to go into Baronne de Fleur as our 5th summon. After that, we revive Knight using Bramble, and now we can safely use his effect. This lets us access Rage Rose Witch, who sends Garden Rose Maiden and Glow Up Bulb to the graveyard. Maiden then revives Rox Rose, which we use to go into Chow Feng. Next, Baronne uses her effect to destroy a card on the field. We target Chow Feng. This triggers both Rage Rose in the graveyard and Chow Feng's search effect, allowing us to add Rotary to hand. At this point, we need any tuner in hand so we can normal summon Rotary. From there, Rotary lets us go into our second Bramble Rose Dragon. This triggers Rotary's effect, letting us add a spell while also giving us information about the opponent's hand. We search the field spell here. After that, we revive Glow Up Bulb from the graveyard, and the field spell contributed to special summon Mix from the deck. Mix then searches Q. Thanks to the extra normal summon from the field spell, we can now normal summon Q, activate her effect to summon Reco from the deck, and Reco searches any Killer Tune monster that isn't level 3. We go for a second Mix to gain access to Trackmaker, and from there into Zaylin. This setup gives us access to a Killer Tune Synchro, which makes it easy to trigger Zaylin and perform a Synchro summon during the opponent's turn. Trackmaker can also search Clip, which is important so we don't lock ourselves into only tuner monsters and can get maximum value from back-to-back. Let's take a look at our main killer tune starter, Reco. The setup during our turn is pretty straightforward. Reco searches Rotary and then immediately goes into Track Maker. This triggers both effects. Rotary searches the field spell, and Track Maker searches Kewl. Thanks to the field spell, we gain an additional normal summon. We use that to summon Red Rose Dragon via Kewl. From there, we can go into Zaylin using Track Maker and Red Rose. This triggers Red Rose, which summons Rox Rose Dragon from the deck. Rox Rose then searches Black Rose Garden, and Garden searches a second Red Rose Dragon. Next, we use the field spell's effect to tribute Rox Rose and special summon Mix from the deck. Mix searches another Rotary, and we can use Rotary's hand effect to gain yet another normal summon, allowing us to bring out the second Red Rose. We finish this line by going into Remix, giving us access to a quick synchro play during the opponent's turn, which also makes it very easy to trigger Zaylin. From here, we pass turn and wait for a good opportunity to use Remix's effect. This lets us trigger Zaylin and then follow up into plays that can access back-to-back. This is just a sample line. I highly recommend adapting your plays based on the game state rather than blindly following a fixed combo. But for now, let's just enjoy this extremely satisfying play on the opponent's turn. Finishing the game through Black Rose Garden Burn definitely feels like BM, but it's so funny. Anyway, those were our main 1-card combos, or 1.5 card combos in the case of the Rox Rose starter. Now let's take a look at the best 2-card opener in the deck, Rotary plus Red Rose Dragon. We start by activating Rotary's hand effect to gain an additional normal summon. Then we normal summon Rotary and go into Track Maker, which triggers all 3 effects. Letting us search the field spell, add a killer tune synchro, and summon Rox Rose Dragon, which then searches Black Rose Garden. Before we go any further, we make Zaylin so we have protection against Nibiru, since we can trigger Zaylin at any time using a killer tune synchro. Black Rose Garden then searches White Rose Dragon, and since we still have our regular normal summon, we can normal summon White Rose to special summon a Rose Dragon from the graveyard and go into Bramble Rose Dragon. White Rose sends Vengeful Witch to the grave, and Witch summons Twilight Black Rose Knight from the deck. Knight then revives Witch, giving us access to Rage Rose Witch. Rage Rose Witch sends Glow Up Bulb and Garden Rose Maiden to the graveyard. We revive Bulb and use it to go into a second Bramble Rose Dragon, setting up the double burn. Maiden then revives a Tuner Rose Dragon. We use the field spell to tribute that tuner and special summon Mix from the deck. Mix searches Q, and we can summon Q thanks to the field spell. Q then summons Reco, and Reco searches Clip to give us an additional layer of disruption. Finally, we synchro into Remix using Mix and Q, which also gives us information about the opponent's top deck. From there, we pass turn with multiple points of interaction. The Mix start is a bit weaker compared to the other starters we've covered. It does require a level 3 tuner in hand, but honestly, it's pretty rare not to have one. We normal summon Mix and search for Rotary. Rotary then special summons herself and uses the level 3 tuner from hand to go into Track Maker. From here, we essentially gain access to the rest of the engine, including the Rose package. In the end, it plays out very similarly to the Reco start, just slightly worse in terms of efficiency. We're still ending on a very similar setup, a level 3 tuner, usually Reco, Zaylin, Remix, and Clip in hand, giving us multiple points of interaction during the opponent's turn. All the other starter combinations are essentially just variations of the combos we've already covered. In most cases, everything comes down to gaining access to Rotary and Red Rose Dragon. For example, Rox Rose and Black Rose Garden give you access to Red Rose, while the other killer tune cards typically lead you into Rotary. That's why understanding the Rotary plus Red Rose line is so important. It comes up in a huge number of your games. And that's basically it for the combos section of the video. If you have any questions or suggestions, feel free to leave them in the comments. But for now, enjoy the replays. I'm also including more replays this time, because with this deck, it's way more important to see how it plays out in real games rather than just memorizing combos. Your lines are always changing depending on how your opponent interacts with you.
moment. Is this a mirage or a chance to fulfill?